Meryl Streep quietly separated from her husband Don Gummer for 6 whole years before she told anyone about it. She finally announced it publicly on their 45th wedding anniversary. This wasn't just any normal divorce. It was the cold ending of a relationship that everyone thought was one of the strongest marriages in Hollywood. "It's not how I normally am, but I feel so lucky to have my husband and a good family," she once said. So what made Meryl Streep, the most private woman in Hollywood, decide to make such a big announcement? A journey together that lasted almost 50 years disappeared with just one simple statement, and behind that were choices that only she could make for herself. Back in 1978, Meryl Streep said yes when Don Gummer asked her to marry him. This happened just a few months after she buried the man she once called the greatest love of her whole life, an actor named John Cazale. While she was still sad about losing John, she moved into Don Gummer's home. Don was a sculptor who didn't work in the entertainment business at all. They got married almost right away. Don Gummer was 6 years older than Meryl. He didn't act in movies. He didn't care about walking on red carpets. He didn't want to be famous. He owned his own art gallery, worked in the art world, and lived a very private, quiet life. When Meryl entered the busiest time of her acting career, Don chose to stay in the background. He ran the family and took care of their children. They had 4 kids together: Henry, Mamie, Grace, and Louisa. All 4 children were raised almost completely away from TV cameras and magazines. "We always agreed on one thing: our family is not something for the public to know about," Meryl said in a rare interview. "I'm so proud of my daughters and I'm so happy about them. At first, I was worried about them. There were no stories about them fighting. There were no loud photos in newspapers or magazines. They hardly ever went to entertainment events together. Throughout the 1980s and 1990s, Meryl almost always went to awards shows by herself or with her daughter. Don was still around, but he usually just sat quietly in the back of the audience. This wasn't a trick to make them look good. This was just how they chose to live. The balance between their 2 worlds worked well for a long time. One was America's biggest movie star. The other was a quiet husband who lived away from all the cameras and attention. Meryl once said, "Success comes easily and goes away easily. What keeps me stable and grounded is him." Don almost never talked about anything related to his wife, their family, or their marriage. The very few times he was mentioned in the media were when other people talked about him at events, not because he actually went to those events himself. The strong connection between Meryl and Don didn't come from big, fancy promises. It came from sharing everyday practical choices, taking care of the kids, picking out a house, dividing up work shifts, planning around filming schedules and art exhibition schedules. When Meryl was filming movies, Don stayed home. When Don went to art exhibitions, Meryl took care of the children. When the children got old enough, both parents stepped back and let them choose their own lives. The family worked like a well-oiled machine. Everyone understood their role without having to talk about it, and they did not let the media interfere with how they lived. One thing that not many people realize is that even though Meryl is one of the most famous actors on the entire planet, she rarely talks about her personal life. She especially never talks about her marriage. But in 2012 at the Oscars, when she won the Golden Statue for playing Margaret Thatcher, she said something special at the very beginning of her speech. "First of all, I want to thank Don. Because if I leave it until the end, the background music will start playing and drown me out. Everything I treasure most in this life was brought to me by him." Looking back now, the years they spent living separately and keeping silent about it clearly shows a kind of breakup without any announcement. There was no big conclusion, just a choice to keep everything secret until it was all settled. After almost 50 years of being seen as a symbol of a strong, lasting marriage, Meryl Streep and Don Gummer slowly started moving away from each other. Starting around the mid-2010s, Don's presence with Meryl began to fade away. He stopped showing up with her at movie premieres, awards ceremonies, and charity events like he used to. There was no official announcement at that time. But small changes in their schedules and the way they appeared separately quietly showed that they were living in two different rhythms of life. This split happened very quietly. There were no angry words. There were no arguments. Don focused completely on his sculpture work, while Meryl continued acting in lots of movies. The two no longer shared the same home, but they still kept their connection through their children and family occasions. Every single time Meryl appeared in public, she still wore her wedding ring on her hand. That one detail made many people believe that their marriage was still perfectly fine and intact. But the truth is, they actually chose to separate their lives starting in 2017. They kept it a secret like it was an invisible boundary line that couldn't be crossed. Meryl once said in an interview, "Every relationship needs a break. That break is not always the end. Sometimes it's just a way for people to breathe." Looking back, that statement perfectly describes what was happening in her marriage at that exact time. Don Gummer still stayed in contact with his family, but he no longer went along with his wife on work trips. Both of them agreed not to let the media know anything about what they were going through. The separation happened gradually, bit by bit, without any announcement and without any noise or drama. People who worked with Meryl on big movie projects said she always kept a professional attitude. She never let her personal problems affect her work. That's also the reason why nobody noticed anything had changed. During the 6 years from the time she started living alone until she made the announcement, Meryl still kept up the image of a woman with a stable family. She wore her wedding ring as a symbol of a life without any disturbance or problems. Meanwhile, Don withdrew from public life. He lived in his own art studio and spent all his time on his art. He didn't make any statements. He turned down repeated requests for interviews from reporters and magazines. This was the time when their two separate worlds became most obvious and clear. One person was focused on a film career. The other was hidden away in the world of sculpture. The distance between them was never spoken about out loud, but it was obvious in every small detail: different addresses, different schedules, and years without a shared family calendar. Still, this separation stayed within the limits of mutual respect. Meryl kept all information private to avoid affecting Don or their children. Don, with his naturally private personality, saw keeping silent as a way to show loyalty to their past together. The two didn't leave behind any trace of a loud, messy breakup. Everything happened like a natural transition from married life to two parallel paths that never crossed. People close to the family confirmed that Meryl and Don were still in regular contact. They still showed up at important occasions. But they chose to live separately. What's really interesting is that they didn't see this as a breakup. They saw it as a necessary adjustment so each person could be free in their own space. After this long period of secret separation, what's even more remarkable is the way Meryl made the truth public directly, decisively, and at exactly the right time when very few people expected it. On October 20, 2023, Meryl Streep's official representative put out a statement. The statement said that she and Don Gummer had been living apart for more than 6 years. The short but powerful statement was like putting a quiet period at the end of a sentence that had been going on since 2017. While they always cherished each other, they chose to live separate lives. The statement came with no photos, there were no appearances together, there was no press conference. Everything was confirmed and made final with just one official statement. The timing of the announcement got a lot of attention, not just because of what it said, but because it came out right around their 45th wedding anniversary. In September of that year, several news websites republished old photos celebrating Meryl and Don's long-term marriage. Some photos from recent events showed Meryl still wearing her wedding ring, which made everyone think her private life was stable and happy. But just a few weeks later, the separation was confirmed. This made their 45th anniversary become an official goodbye. This announcement ended a 6-year period of secrecy between the two of them. During all that time, Meryl continued to appear regularly at awards shows, ceremonies, movie premieres, and media interviews. Don Gummer was completely absent from all related events. This included events where he used to appear as a guest before. There was no announcement from either side about any change in their marriage status. So the announcement in 2023 became the very first time people learned about the truth that had been happening for such a long time. Meryl has always maintained a strict privacy stance. She did not participate in any public conversations about the separation. Related questions in interviews were either skipped over or not allowed by her representatives. Gummer, as usual, stayed completely silent. That silence continued even after the information was officially announced. He gave no response or personal comment whatsoever. It's important to notice that throughout the entire separation, Meryl still went to major events with a professional attitude. She always carried a stable personal image with her. From the Oscar, red carpet to European film festivals to smaller award ceremonies, she always appeared looking dignified and put together. She showed absolutely no signs that her private life was changing. Not letting personal emotions affect her work is how she kept her position in the industry. At the same time, she avoided disrupting the lives of the people around her. The separation information was announced just before she returned to the popular TV series Only Murders in the Building. This was her first role on television after a long time away from TV. Her return to the small screen, along with the announcement about her personal life, is seen by many people as a sign that she's entering a new chapter in her life. It's a chapter no longer connected to the traditional role of being a wife. Instead, it's more focused on her personal life and her career at the age of 70. The way she announced it shows even more of Meryl Streep's personal style: short, precise, and leaving no room for people to make up stories or guess what happened. Giving information after everything has already settled is a choice that fits perfectly with her character and personality. There are no emotional statements, there's no blame, there's no analysis of what caused it. Everything is confirmed just as it really is. The two people chose to live separately after a long journey together. From the moment the separation was confirmed, Meryl's life entered a different phase. Don Gummer is no longer by her side anymore. All the questions now turn to the obvious things. How is she living? How is she working? And who is appearing in her new personal life beyond the marriage? Since confirming her separation, Meryl Streep has entered a completely new phase in her personal life. She is completely independent now, without Don Gummer by her side at any events or activities. The announcement of separation didn't just mark a change in their relationship. It also put an end to a long series of suspicions that had been ignored before. Her personal life began to be viewed from a totally different perspective. She's no longer seen as a wife who maintains tradition and old-fashioned values. During this time, Meryl appeared more often at international events, especially when participating in the TV series Only Murders in the Building. The role marked an amazing return after a period without any new projects. It also showed a clear change in her style. She's still as calm as before, but in each appearance, she no longer wears her wedding ring. This is a small change, but it's very symbolic. It affirms the transition from being part of a partnership to being an independent individual. Meanwhile, Don Gummer continues to live in his own artistic space and world. He doesn't appear anywhere that's related to Meryl. There are no public meetings between them. There are no pictures of the two of them in the same place after 2018. Even though he's the father of 4 grown-up children, Don still chooses to keep his distance from the media. His sculpting activities are still followed by art professionals, but there's almost no connection with the person who was his wife for nearly half a century. Some sources say that Meryl now spends most of her time in New York. This location is convenient for both her work and her television projects. Here in New York, she was spotted having dinner with a group of close friends. This group included actor Martin Short, her co-star in the latest season of Only Murders in the Building. The two were noticed to have had many close interactions during filming and at some backstage parties. However, there has been no confirmation from people on the inside about what the nature of this relationship really is. It's worth noting that since the separation, Meryl has tended to appear with fixed groups of friends. She doesn't appear with relatives or family members anymore. Honor ceremonies, press interviews, or attending events are all done according to work schedules now, not personal schedules. Her psychological stability and her ability to take initiative in controlling her image show that she has completely adapted to living alone. She's not relying on the role of being a wife anymore. She doesn't need a companion to maintain balance like she did before. Even though Meryl has not publicly shared her feelings after living separately, the fact that she proactively confirmed the truth after 6 years of keeping it secret shows something important. It shows that she has accepted this new reality and is ready to redefine herself. Up to now, Meryl has always clearly shown the boundary between work life and private life. But even while experiencing major changes in her personal relationships, she has maintained her professional performance. She completed her roles and accepted to participate in highly appreciated projects. Meryl and Don's 4 children are all grown up now. They're working in the arts or media fields, but they all stay away from the entertainment media spotlight. This partly reflects the agreement between Meryl and Don about how to protect their family. Even when they live separately now, they still maintain coordination on how to keep everything related to their children and family privacy completely private. The current situation shows that both of them have entered separate paths without causing any public damage or drama. There is no longer a marriage role to maintain, but they still keep a respectful attitude toward each other. They do not attack each other. They do not appear in public with new people in a way that shows off or demonstrates anything. Meryl chooses to keep a moderate working pace. She prioritizes quality roles over quantity, meaning she'd rather do fewer great roles than lots of okay ones. Don Gummer continues to live true to the path he chose before the separation. He stays separate, doesn't speak to the press, and only lets his artwork speak for itself. That steadfastness and strength doesn't come from any particular role. It comes from the process of growing and maturing internally. It comes from the foundation that Meryl built many decades ago. Those foundations didn't start from living under a shared roof with someone. They started from her own personality and character, something that was formed very early in her life. Meryl Streep was born in 1949 in New Jersey, USA. She grew up in a middle-class family with an academic background, meaning her family valued education and learning. She started out studying vocals and singing. Then she moved to studying theater during her time at Vassar College. After that, she continued her studies at Yale School of Drama, where she received formal, proper training in acting. From her very first roles on Broadway, she quickly made a strong impression. People noticed her because of her amazing ability to transform her voice, her facial expressions, and the inner depth she brought to each character. Meryl's film career really began to stand out when she acted in the movie The Deer Hunter in 1978. This was also the same time when she was taking care of John Cazale, her boyfriend at the time, who was suffering from terminal cancer that couldn't be cured. John Cazale's death left a deep and distinct emptiness in her life, but it also led directly to her marriage to Don Gummer just a few months later. She never said that her relationship with Don replaced her previous relationship with John, but the loss itself formed a significant and important part of her approach to every role she played, both on the movie screen and off the screen in real life. Meryl once said, "I don't think I can separate what I've been through from who I am." That's not just some deep philosophical statement. It's simply an acknowledgement of how the past leaves a lasting mark on who we become. In all the years that followed, she chose to keep her privacy as high as possible. She has no social media accounts. She shares no family photos publicly. She keeps her children out of the press and magazines. In interviews, Meryl rarely spoke about her husband or her marriage. She mostly talked about her acting roles, her projects, and her career instead. Throughout her entire career, she has won more than 20 Oscar nominations. She has won the Oscar Award 3 times. She's considered the most accomplished actress in the entire history of the Academy Awards. But what makes her highly appreciated and respected isn't just the awards. It's also the way she constantly challenges herself with complex and difficult roles. From playing a single mother in Kramer vs. Kramer, to playing a Jewish woman in Sophie's Choice, to modern images like Miranda Priestley in The Devil Wears Prada, Meryl doesn't fit into any single type or genre of acting. But off the movie screen, her image is completely different from her on-screen characters. She makes no flashy gestures when accepting awards. There's no showing off or being fancy when she appears in public. She always chooses simple dresses with very little jewelry and gives short speeches. In public speeches, Meryl often emphasizes and highlights the role of other people, the directors, her co-stars, and the backstage crew members. The way she shows respect to her colleagues has become something that's recognized and appreciated throughout her entire career. When it comes to talking about her family, she maintains a strict separation and boundary. Her 4 children were raised at home. They went to schools that were outside of the showbiz world. Even though 3 of her 4 children later decided to pursue artistic careers, they all worked and operated very discreetly and quietly. The Meryl Streep name was never used or associated with media campaigns to promote them. This was the result of Meryl carefully controlling her image and choosing a clear boundary between her work life and her family life. Meryl has always shown that she does not let fame change her way of living. She did not buy a huge luxurious mansion. She did not build a personal brand. She did not launch her own fashion line or products to sell. For many decades, she lived in an old house in the northeastern part of the United States. She stayed far away from media hotspots and celebrity centers. If you find this story brings a different perspective on Meryl Streep, or if it simply makes you think more deeply about the silent choices that happen in the lives of celebrities, don't forget to like this video. Share the video with other people who also love Meryl Streep and appreciate her work. Subscribe to the channel so you don't miss the next stories we share. Leave a comment down below if you have your own thoughts on this story. We are always ready to listen to what you think.